I'm not exaggerating when I say that this Supabase feature will make your development so much easier if you have public-facing apps. Creating anonymous users, converting them to real users, and even merging an anonymous user into an already existing user is what you will learn in this lovely little e-commerce project. Also, I'll show you the pitfalls of anonymous users to avoid you running into problems, so don't just activate the feature before you watch this video. Subscribing doesn't cost a dime, so if you want me to make more videos, I appreciate your support by liking, subscribing, or supporting me with Superfangs on YouTube. You can also find me on Ko-Fi. Are you ready for me improving your Supabase experience? Are you? Let's jump in. I have built this nice little web shop here. There's 5 products, whereas the most precious ones are Anne's used socks. I'm sorry. And when you click these neat cart buttons, you can add them to the cart. But if I do that now, it says error adding to cart. I will show you that it works when I'm signed in, but let me show you the Supabase tables first. There are exactly 2 tables. So the products table with product names and an image path and the costs in cent. Then the only other thing is the cart items, and this is really simple. It's a product ID, so any product ID from here, and a user ID from the auth users table. Yeah, you can see the reference here. And that's all for now. I have created exactly one user, dev@super.base, with the awesome password 1234. And let me also show the access policies. There's exactly 2 policies. Like the products, everybody can access. That's why it's just true. Everybody should be able to read the products, right? For the card items, I'm just saying the signed in person can do whatever they want with their own card items. They can change it, they can delete it, they can insert stuff. That's all right. So if we go to that shop, we can sign in. And this one is simply going to trigger sign in with password. Yeah, so that's all it does. Supabase browser client, simple as that. So let's try that. dev@super.base 1234. And now I'm signed in. Just so you get an understanding how it retrieves that. So what I'm doing here is actually pretty simple. Because this is a front-end file, I'm immediately initializing the Supabase client and I'm subscribing to any authentication events with on-off state change. Well, and I simply use a set, basically an array, to allow my custom hook to get informed about those authentication changes. And the first time anything is triggered, we set this thing to ready, because then you know the Supabase client has tried to authenticate successfully or not, but we do know that it has done it. And then whatever the result is, we just set the user and also the is anonymous, which is really just right now, if there is a user, anonymous is false, and if there's no user, anonymous is true. That's all we do. And that front-end hook I can use in all of my components, and I'm also using it here in navigation, so whenever the user changes, I can actually access the user object and show the email. That's it. Now let's try to add a teddy bear, a mechanical keyboard, and a Supabase cheat sheet. And you can see that it updated the card in real time. Also, for clarity, let me show you the code. So for each of these products, it's really doing a simple thing. When you click the button, it will go to Supabase and say, insert this product with the given product ID and the current user ID. This will fail if the user is nullish, and then it will just show a snack bar, which you've seen before. And then there's the cart page where I simply select all of those and show them. Where select all of those and show them, and you can delete those and so on and so forth. Then there's this checkout button, which does just one simple thing, which is triggering a snack bar. And that really just comes down to this. So if there is a user, then we trigger the snack bar. That's it. All right. Now the issue is we barely want to force people to create an account only to put items into their shopping cart. So what people usually do is using like local storage to keep track of the items if someone isn't signed in, but that also means more complexity, or they use publicly accessible tables, like where everybody can write, but then they still have to keep track of those IDs somewhere in the local storage or in the cookies or whatever. And that adds actually complexity and maintenance effort, because you got to check if signed in and if not signed in, and you got to differentiate. But now I'm showing you a solution that is as easy as it can be. So I'm going to log out again, and the card's going to be gone because it's bound to the user. And I want to be able to add stuff to the card when I'm not signed in. For that, we can use the anonymous user feature, and that's great. But how to use it and where to put it? If you want to use this feature on your local instance like I do, you need to ensure that enable anonymous sign-ins is set to true in your Supabase/config toml. On supabase.com in your project, you can literally just turn this on and save it. There is a warning, and we'll get to the warning in this video, so make sure you stick with it because that's very important. So this user model here in the navigation is actually rendered all the time, so it's available all the time, it's not re-rendered. Same as the navigation. It's just shown or hidden with CSS. Let's take this one as a starting point. So when this is being mounted, we want to know if someone signed in or not. So what we can do in React is listen for when the authentication has been resolved, no matter if signed in or not. So we can just check for is ready. And if it is, we want to know if there is a user or not. So let's also add the user to watch. And if there is no user, that's important, then we trigger supabase.auth.signInAnonymously. The React default and the Next.js default as well is React strict mode. And strict mode will forcefully call every use effect twice in development mode. That's just to prove that there's no side effects. But not just that. I mean, use effect can be called multiple times because the user object changes or whatnot. So when we call sign in anonymously, we'll trigger a request to actually create an anonymous user. And you don't want to do this like all the times. When this is already processing, you don't want to run this another time to create like endless users. So I'll just use a simple trick. I use a React reference is creating anon user. And if that's already set to true right now, then we don't want to do anything. But if not, then we want to run it. And when it's done, we set it back to false. Actually, using useRef isn't even the best solution. The best thing you actually can do is to use local storage. I won't do it now, but basically instead of useRef, you want to use like use local storage. Simply because if you have multiple tabs open and lifecycle events happen, it could be that they go out of sync and you have different anonymous users, and this is what you don't want. So this is kind of a pitfall that you have to deal with anonymous users if you create them in the front end. All right, let's check what happens. You can already see that in the navigation, we don't see an email, but we also don't see a sign in. And when we click it, it says that we are signed in, which is weird, and we're gonna fix this, but we are, because if you take a look at your authentication in Supabase Studio, you see that there is an anonymous user created. So literally, sign in anonymously creates a user without any data attached, but the user ID. So let's try to add the mechanical keyboard and a teddy bear. Oh, that seems to work. Awesome. That sure does work because it's just a user. And the only requirement we have is having a user. It's just an anonymous user. You got to take a break right here because you got to really appreciate how we really didn't put any kind of real work into it, and it we just made it work. That's crazy. But we're facing a few problems now. Like, first of all, we don't want to show this as signed in. That's going to be confusing for a user who really isn't signed in. And second, when we click checkout, we shouldn't be able to see this one because we cannot really process an order with an anonymous user. Let's solve the first one. In the code of that modal, you can see that it differentiates between being anonymous and showing the login or having a user and showing the signed in information. Now, what we would want to have is that if someone is signed in as a user, but as an anonymous user, we would want the is anonymous one to be true as well. So not just based on is it a user or not. And that's actually easy to solve. Because inside here, we're just saying if it's a user, then it's not anonymous, but we can change this. So we can simply say if the user is anonymous equals true, then it will set this flag depending on if it's a real user or an anonymous one. Let's save it. And now you can see that it actually says we're not signed in. So let's add this cheat sheet and the socks. And now what we want to do is we want to check out, but at the same time, we want to basically convert this anonymous user to a real user. So how do we do that? This is our checkout function. It doesn't actually place an order. It just acts like it does. This one places the order only if it's a real user. So if it's not, because it's an anonymous user, we need to add the process of converting that anonymous user to a real user. So when the user is anonymous, we want to prompt them for their email. Let's make it simple and just use the browser built-in one. Provide your mail, please. And the given email, we then pass on to Supabase with auth.updateUser and the email. Gotta typecast this because it could be undefined. And when that's done, we trigger a snack bar saying we will place your order once you confirmed your account. So let's check. Let's order these items. It asks me for my email, which is socks@super.base. And now it's saying we will place your order once you confirmed your account, but it still shows, like, even if I refresh, I'm not signed in. So now it's important to understand what happened. If you go to the user's overview, you still see there's just the anonymous user. You don't see the email. It still says waiting for verification. So it seems like nothing happened. But if you check the user info, there will be a property email change with the email I provided. So where to go from here? Adding an email to an anonymous user will basically trigger the same as sending a magic link. But since I'm on my local system, emails aren't really sent, but they're thrown onto a local SMTP server, which you actually can access. Just go to your project and run npx Supabase status. And it says Inbucket URL. So you copy this one and you go to that URL. And on monitor, you will see the email that was being sent. So when I click that, you can see that I'm now successfully signed in. And here is my card. Isn't that awesome? But what if I want to use a Google sign-in or Slack or whatever? Well, that's actually easy. Let's assume that you want to sign in with Google. Then you don't do this, but you run this instead. Link identity. And then you say provider and then whatever provider you want to use. And I won't go into detail into that because that's exactly the same flow as when you call supabase.auth.signin with OAuth. So I don't want to explain that one now, but it's the same flow. The only difference between those is that link identity will take the currently signed in user, which in our case is the anonymous user, go to Google, have that login, and then connect it back. So same process. You gotta make sure though that if you want to use the link identity feature, that when using it locally, you'd set enable manual linking to true and on your production instance in your project authentication settings. But there's another thing we should solve because we now can anonymously add stuff to the cart, and then we can create a user account with that. That's good. But what if we want anonymously add stuff to the cart and then we notice we aren't signed in? So let's sign out for now. So what I wanted to solve with you now is, what do we do if we add like free coffees and then we sign in? Because that would mean that all the stuff that we added to the cart anonymously will be gone because our own user will have its own cart. So we kind of need to merge those. There's no built-in solution for that because that really depends on your database setup, like what do you want to merge, but it's actually easy to do. And the flow is like this. You're signed in anonymously with a specific user ID. You store that user ID and then the user logs in, and then you pass on all of the cart items of that anonymous user ID to the now signed in user. Let me show you. So in here, before signing in, you want to grab the existing user ID, so anon user ID. And that will be in the user object. And then when the sign-in is successful, you want to take over the cart items that were there previously, but you cannot access, due to the RLAS policies, the stuff from other users. So what we will do is building a RPC that we will name copy anon cart, and we will pass it the anon user ID as anon ID. And when that's done, we will simply do console log copied item. Now we have to implement this. To do this, you go to Supabase Studio, to your database functions, create a new function with the name copy anon cart. It doesn't have to return anything, but it needs the anon ID to be passed. That's a UUID. Now you write the function, and the function will just insert into our own cart. And we want to insert the product ID and the user ID. And because of the keyword, we have to use quotes, or PostgreSQL will complain. And then you can insert by selecting. So we want to select all of the cart items. So we want to select the product ID and the user ID, which is the currently signed in user. Then we say from cart items, which we alias with C, where C.user is the same as the given anon ID. Now you can also ensure that we are not copying stuff from random users, but just from anonymous users. So we can do a subselect and exists, select from off users, where select from off users, where the ID matches the given ID, and it must be anonymous. So far, so good. But the problem is this wouldn't work because it's RLS protected and we don't have access to any other user than our own. But since we have the proper checks in here, we can let this function run as admin. Go to advanced settings, security definer, and this will run this function with admin rights. And it's important to know that auth.uid will still reference the signed in user. So not like Postgres user, which would be null anyway, but yeah, that's important to know. So we save that. Now let's just have another look at our code. So when someone signs in, we take the given user ID, pass it to copy anon cart, looking good. Let's test it. So we got those free cookies. We sign in with dev at super.base. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we go. There's our cart plus the free cookie. Awesome, right? Let's talk about important stuff that you have to know before you use and activate that feature. So as you can see here, activating this feature will easily fill your users with a lot of anonymous users. Like I can open a private window, I can delete my browser cache, whatever, whatnot. You'll have a lot of anonymous users. That's what you have to expect. So that's going to fill your database. And at one point of time, you want to clean that up. You can clean up such users by running delete from off users, where is anonymous equals true. Now this will delete all anonymous users, but far more often you will want to delete them based on some conditions, such as they're older than 10 days. What you can do instead is also requesting that the updated add timestamp must be older than 10 days. So when you run this, it will delete all of these users, but I can also just say like 1 minute. Now all anonymous users should be gone. Yes. So you can run this with a cron job or whatnot, for example, pgcron. But there's another thing that you really have to take care of, which is also the reason why this feature isn't enabled by default. Let's say you have some kind of blog post table. Enabling this feature will make everybody a user. Why is that troublesome? So if you go to authentication and check the user info of an anonymous user, you will see that the role is authenticated. It makes sense. It is a user and it is signed in. But the problem is that sometimes people have stuff like a blog post table where they just want authenticated users to access the posts or whatnot. And then they add an RLS policy which says auth users can read. And then they say they only have to be authenticated and then they can just access it. The problem is that this is basically, if you enable anonymous users, this doesn't provide any kind of security anymore. You can still do it though. So you can get the JWT of the signed in user, then access is anonymous, cast all of it to a Boolean, and check if it's false. Did I promise too much? I think I didn't. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay friendly to each other. Remember that you can support me if you want, and have a great week.